Anyone who has attempted to edit 4K video will have at some time experienced timeline playback issues. Smooth playback becomes difficult, as if the video is sticking. This is especially the case if the timeline contains transitions or effects. Timeline scrubbing becomes tedious and frustrating, and this can happen on even the most powerful PCs and Macs. So, why does this happen, and how can we avoid it? The problem comes down to the size of the image and the way it was encoded by the video camera. To understand this, let's first look back at the way motion pictures were first captured using celluloid film. A movie film is basically just a series of still images, photos if you like, captured usually at 24 images or, as we say, frames per second. Each image shows the scene as it was at that instant of time, and when all of the images are displayed sequentially one after another as they were filmed, the illusion of a moving image is created. So, how is a video of a moving image created? Well, at its simplest form, it is similar to the way a celluloid film is created. If a video is taken with a frame rate of 24 frames per second, the same frame rate as most cinema movies, then 24 images are captured per second and can be encoded on a data card, such as a micro SD. Usually these individual images are compressed using a bit of software called a codec to reduce storage space. Each image could be encoded as a complete record of the scene at the instant of time it was captured, just like the images captured on movie films. In the video world, individual complete images are referred to as iframes. However, there is a downside to this simple approach. The resulting videos require a great deal of storage. The file sizes that result are very large, especially for 4K videos. However, many professionally made videos encode all the images as complete iframes. The Apple Prores codec, for example, takes this approach. But the file sizes are very large, requiring large storage setups. Furthermore, transmission of these large files to our TV sets or across the internet would require a very high bandwidth and generally is not practical. Today, most videos are distributed using files created using the H.264 or H.265 codecs, which require less storage space and are more practical. And most video cameras, drones or mobile phones usually encode videos using the H.264 or H.265 codecs, although the iPhone 15 Pro Max and some professional video cameras can encode video as ProRes files. But you have to attach an external storage device to cope with the extra storage requirements. So, how do H.264 and H.265 encoded files differ from encoding each image or frame separately, like movie film images, or the way ProRes images are encoded? Whilst ProRes frames are all individual and complete iframes, H.264 and H.265 files are encoded as groups of frames, starting with a complete iframe, followed by several other incomplete frames, which just capture the changes from the iframe. They are known as P frames and B frames. Put simply, the image is broken down into a number of small blocks of data. The iframe in effect encodes all the blocks, and the P and B frames encode just the changes to the blocks that have changed, allowing the codec to carry forward the rest of the iframe image without re-encoding it. Several frames later, or when there is a major change, a new group of pictures starting with a new iframe is encoded. This saves a lot of storage space. Furthermore, each iframe, P frame and B frame are compressed by the codec to minimize redundant or recurring data. The P frames predict how the image should look now if it was combined with the iframe to give a complete image. B frames, or bidirectional frames, are similar to P frames, but can look forward or backward to improve the quality of the predicted image and the efficiency of the compression process. To summarize, H.264 and H.265 files use all three frame types, usually loosely referred to as IPB or interframe, and confusingly sometimes also described as long GOP, which means long group of pictures. Whereas the process of just capturing complete images or iframes is sometimes referred to as all I or intra-frame. H.265 is often referred to as HEVC or High Efficiency Video Coding. It is based on the same principles as H.264, but is generally more efficient, producing smaller files but requiring more processing power to encode and de-encode it. And therein lies the problem for the video editor. Editing programs, such as Premiere Pro or Final Cut, have to be able to process these IPB interframe formats, such as H.264 and 4K H.265 smoothly. IPB files are fine for continuous capture and playback, but they are not designed for frame-by-frame analysis and modification, all part of the editing process. Adding a simple crossfade becomes really complex and requires a lot of CPU processing power. However, video files comprised of just iframes, like Prores files, can be manipulated much more easily, as all the data required is in a single frame and not scattered across several frames. So why not just convert your H.264 and H.265 files to ProRes and edit the results? Well, you could do that, but you would need to convert your 4K H.265 files to the highest quality, no-loss ProRes files if you don't want to lose the quality of the original. And this could take a lot of time and a great deal more storage. And at the end of the process, you're probably going to have to distribute your work in H.264 or H.265 and will have to go through the whole transcode process again. And here's where proxies fit in and come to the rescue of the frustrated and tired and depressed video editor. Proxies are basically just low-res all-I copies, such as ProRes files, which can be quickly and automatically generated by Media Encoder that seamlessly and almost invisibly sit alongside your original 4K media. The editing process is now much more efficient as all of the images are iframes and complete. You can view the timelines, add effects and transitions, etc. in real time by viewing the proxy files, which is much less demanding on your CPU. You can seamlessly switch between the original and the proxy files as you edit the timeline, if you need to, or just work with the proxy files. For example, it can be useful to see the impact a LUT has on your original high-res file. but switching to the proxy files is the best way to assemble and edit the basic timeline material. However, remember, your final exported videos will be built on your original 4K source material and will not suffer any loss of quality. Okay, let's look at how we can create and use proxy files in Premiere Pro 2024. There are two main options. Option 1, copy and import the files into Premiere Pro from the source and create proxies at the same time, using Media Encoder to generate ProRes copies. Or option 2, copy the files to the computer first, import them into Premiere, and then create the proxies later as needed. I'm going to take option 1 first. I'll create a new project called Proxy Demonstration on an external fast SSD drive in a folder called Demos. I'll create a new folder for the project, which I will call Proxy Demo, and then create the new project. My source files are on an external SD card. I'm going to use the media browser window to locate my source clips. I've created my own workspace to make this simpler, but you could just use the media browser included in the editing workspace. I can browse the clips and scrub through them to select the ones I want. I've included a source monitor to make it a bit easier. Now, if you look at the top left-hand area of the media browser panel, you can see a small box by the word ingest. Ingest is Premiere's word for transferring clips into a project. Tick the spanner tool alongside the box, which will open up a dialog, and select ingest. We could just specify copy and select the location the files should be copied to, but instead we will select copy and create proxies. I'll select a file type for Media Encoder to use to create the proxy copies. I'll go with ProRes medium resolution. Now we'll select where the clips should be copied to. I'll make a new folder called Clips. And where the proxy clips should be placed. I'll create a folder called Proxies. I will also tick the Add Proxy Watermark box, which will burn in a watermark into the generated proxy clips so you know if you are viewing a proxy clip or the original clip in the program monitor. You can see there's also an option to use an ingest preset to do this, but you have to create it using Media Encoder, and personally I don't think it's generally worth the bother. Now we click OK and select the clips we want to import, or as Premiere would say, ingest. You could select all of them, but I'll just select 3 to keep it simple. Now right-click and select Import, and Premiere will bring them into the project. It will also start Media Encoder, which will generate the proxy copies. This could take some time. You can just begin editing without them and Premiere will add them automatically when they're ready. However, I usually go and have a cup of tea or three while it does this. Okay, now after a suitable break we can start editing. If we look at the project folder, we can see that Premiere has copied the clips into the clips folder. A media encoder has placed the proxy copies in the Proxies folder. I will switch to my one monitor editing layout. You can see the clips we selected are in the project window. I'll drag a clip into the timeline to create a new sequence. You can see a little proxy symbol showing on the clip in the timeline. And if you look at the program monitor, there's a little proxy symbol in the control section. Use this to toggle on and off the proxy clip view. If you don't have this symbol, click the Add symbol and drag the proxy symbol down to the bottom of the program monitor panel alongside the other symbols. Now, just look at how the proxy clips speed up the scrubbing through UHD timeline. With proxies toggled off, a very sluggish and jerky response. Now, with the proxy view toggled on, instant response. And wait till you start adding effects. The difference is amazing. It's as if the timeline has been lubricated. If you look at the left-hand bottom corner of the program monitor, you can see the watermark that media encoder generated in the proxy clips, so you can see if you're looking at the original clip or the proxy. And remember, when you export your work, the video you generate will be based on the original clips, not the proxies. You can also generate proxies directly from other clips that you have imported into the project without setting the ingress settings to produce proxies. To illustrate this, I've copied another UHD clip from outside of the project without generating a proxy. To create one, I just right-click the clip, select Proxies, then select Create Proxy, and go through a similar process as before. This time, however, there is the option for Premiere to create a proxy folder in the same folder as the original clip, which could be useful if you are only creating a few proxies. However, in our case, the better option is to browse to the folder I created for the other proxies and select that. Again, Media Encoder will spring into action and generate a proxy copy for this clip. I know that some people prefer to generate proxies this way. You can select multiple clips for the process and generate them all in this manner. As a final note, you can get Media Encoder to generate a quick, low-res export of your work by selecting the Used Proxy box in the General Settings in the Export panel of Premiere Pro and selecting 720 HD. This will be generated relatively quickly and could be used to see if the video works in its present form. Note also that all previews and renders will be generated from the original media, not the proxies. These renders can also be included if you output a video based on the proxy files.